there, this is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com. I'm the mom of 15 children. I've been homeschooling for about 30 years. You know, these last 2 weeks, the reason why I haven't been on YouTube is we were taking 30 years of homeschooling and archiving it. I had like 8 huge storage buckets full of old notebooks and everything. And so I went through all that, threw out all the junk, because I kept saying, well, I'll put this over here and I'll go through it someday. Well, someday was last couple weeks. So that took like 4 hours a day for like 8 or 10 days straight for me to get through that. But praise the Lord, all I got to do now is just put some tabs on the outside of some smaller sized file buckets, and I have it arranged according to child, and most of it is according to you know, from the beginning to the end. It's arranged according to the years when they were homeschooling. So, but that took a lot of effort, so I haven't had time to be on here. However, today I'm back, and I want to talk to you today about Charlotte Mason, simplified Charlotte Mason for the real world, with real moms, with real children who, you know, put things in the toilet that shouldn't belong there, so you have to call the repairman, you know, stuff like that. So we talked already about education is an atmosphere, a discipline, a life. So we covered that. We covered a little bit about habits for children, habits for moms who homeschool. Today we're going to talk about gentle academics for young children. Now this is an idea that's not just advocated by Charlotte Mason, but was also advocated by father and mother of the modern homeschool movement, Dr. Raymond Moore and his wife, Dorothy. They actually wrote a book called Better Late Than Early. And the whole idea was that if you delay formal academics with young children, actually they catch up really quickly, and they actually retain, they have less problems with paying attention and sitting still and all those things if you just delay it a little bit. Actually, Dr. Dobson, who started Focus on the Family, he grabbed onto this idea, and he was an advocate of it in the early 80s, and he suggested that the age to start formal academics for children would be better at the age of 8 or 10. Charlotte Mason talks about this in a way that she believed that younger children should be actually spending more time in play and outdoors in the early years. We're saying 5, 6, 7 years old. It would be better if they would be able to go out and play, you know, take them on nature walks, let them spend time understanding and getting acquainted with the world before you sit them down with books. Dr. Raymond Moore actually talked about how it's a negative effect even on eyesight. There have been studies done by different psychologists, child psychologists, that show that children actually their neural pathways aren't complete until they are a little bit older, especially boys. You know, we would have less problems with boys in school. They would be more attentive and they would learn more easily if we would give them a little more time to mature. When my grandmother was in school, it was normal for children not to even grace the entrance to a school building until they were at least 7. So actually, delayed academics is not a new idea. Actually, the new idea is the pushing academics on earlier and earlier ages. That's actually the new idea, and that was popularized in the late 1800s. And then we had the kindergarten movement of Germany, and a lot of the ideas of education we've gotten out of Germany actually weren't positive ones in the end. But I think we feel guilty as homeschoolers if we don't have our children reading by the age of 7. It's not necessarily the best for them. So there's that in a nutshell, that you shouldn't be afraid to delay academics for younger children. If you find your kids are, you know, getting antsy and wanting to jump and run and do and play, well, go let them. Let them have a great time. You know, if you took and you spent a consistent 15 minutes a day on some phonics, and that's all you did. Maybe throw some color books around, have some clay that they can shape with their hands to develop fine motor skills, have maybe some scissors and colored paper, you know, you'd have them all prepared to learn to read pretty quickly. And you wouldn't have to bust your brain, and you wouldn't have to fret and fume and say, well, I can't make him sit down to do X, Y, and Z. I think that you'd have a better time with your children if you did that. 15 minutes for a young child's attention span is plenty. And if you wanted to do more than just one 15-minute session, you could sit them down for 15 minutes with some basic phonics instruction, have them run and jump and play, bring them back for some read aloud time, have them run and jump and play, and you know what? You'd have the equivalent of a preschool time, a preschool education with your kids. I'm serious. As long as you pay attention to them during the day and you don't just throw them in front of a screen for 8 hours, okay? I'm talking about allowing children to actually play and learn on their own and then answering their questions. You know, little children who are 6, I think that's just the age, they have a million questions. If you're patient and you will answer their questions for them, you'll find that they'll pretty much educate themselves. So there's just my recommendation, something I've observed. Your mileage may vary. You might have a little girl that won't let you alone until you teach her to read. I had some of those too. Actually, I had a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old who begged and begged and begged and begged for me to teach them to read. Well, I put it off and I put it off. And finally, one day, I sat down with my son. He was 6. And I went through the first 5 lessons and Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. I went through like the first 5 or so just to teach him how to sound out. And I guess I said, well, this is enough. I'm gonna let you go. We'll wait till you're a little older. Well, he and his little sister, we got them some picture books for Christmas. And we also got picture books from the library. Well, they sat together and they had someone read it aloud to them. They took one book and they had someone read aloud to them, and then they read it out to each other every night, the same book, over and over again. They taught each other how to read. So by the time I took my daughter, who was 7, and I sat her down and I started doing some basic reading instruction with the McGuffey's reader, she said, "This is boring, Mom. Can't we read a fairy story?" So I went and got her a fairy tale, and she just started reading it, and I had no idea what had happened until they grew up. And then they described to me what they had done, which is kind of interesting. That's a little story. You can just tuck it away and keep it in your mind when you're thinking, these children will never learn how to read. Or, because, tell you what, teaching children to read can be one of the most frustrating and scary things about homeschooling. But you know what? You can do it. And eventually I'm going to show you a pattern and a plan that will make it even easier, especially for those that it seems like they're not catching on and it's really hard for them. But that's for another time. Well, I hope this helps you and gives you some confidence and maybe some ideas that you can put into practice to help you in your homeschooling. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.